Okay, so now that our AdventureWorks dashboard is becoming a bit more complex, we have a number of different report tabs built out, a ton of different visuals in place, it's time to pause and talk about something called report interactions, which is basically how filters on one visual impact the other visuals around it. Now, in Power BI Desktop, you can edit these report interactions to customize how those filters applied to one visual impact all of the other visuals on a report page. So to give you an example, we're looking at the exec page here. If you head to Format, Edit Interactions, you'll see these kind of mysterious symbols appear in the headers of all of your charts and visuals on the page. And these are called cross-filter options. There are a few different types, including Filter, which looks like a bar chart with a filter icon, Highlight, and None. Now you may see some or all of these options depending on the visual type. So what we're looking at here in this example, we're editing interactions from the matrix visual. In other words, configuring exactly what happens when we apply filter context to that matrix, like by selecting a specific product, for instance. And based on how these cross-filter options are configured in this screenshot, what this is telling us is that if we select a product in that matrix visual, that will filter the line chart and the KPI cards beneath it. And we can tell because that filter icon is activated. It's going to highlight the bar chart, which instead of completely filtering the chart for that particular product, instead it shows us the proportion of volume that that product accounts for as part of the whole. And last but not least, selecting a product doesn't impact the text cards below the matrix. So this can be a little bit tricky to wrap your head around at first, but it's really important to think strategically about your report interactions and be deliberate about how they're configured on each of your report pages. So with that, let's jump into Power BI and practice customizing some of these interactions ourselves. So let's take a closer look at this exec dashboard view and start to think about what types of visual interactions might make sense and what types of interactions might we want to change. So we can start to explore these interactions by selecting a visual. I'm going to start with my line chart here, heading to the Format ribbon, and activating the Edit Interaction mode. And again, this is going to show those symbols on every visual, in fact, every object on this report page. So at a glance, I can see that changes or filters applied to this line chart, like selecting a specific data point, are filtering all of these KPIs along the top. They're filtering all of our monthly KPI cards down on the left. They're filtering the most ordered and most returned cards here at the bottom. They're filtering the matrix visual, and the interaction with our orders by category bar chart is a little different. This is configured to a highlight mode, and Power BI will take its best guess at which types of interactions make the most sense, but it's very common to need to change and customize these to suit your needs. So in this particular case, I actually don't really like the highlight view. Instead, I'd like to see this bar chart completely refilter based on the composition of orders for any selected time period. So instead of highlight mode, like we see here, I can go ahead and click the filter option for a bar chart. And now as I select or filter different time periods, that bar chart is refiltering entirely, which in my opinion is a more intuitive type of interaction. Now, one other update that I'd like to make here is the interaction between this line chart and our monthly KPI cards. The intention of these cards was really to highlight the current month's data, so they really shouldn't be impacted by any sort of date time filter, including the line chart. So what I'm going to do is turn these to none, basically turn cross-filtering off, so that when I select data points in my line chart, those don't change. These will always be showing the current month revenue, which in this case I think makes a lot of sense. So that looks pretty good to me. Next thing I'd like to do is select the matrix and see how filters applied to the matrix impact the other charts on the page. Let's go ahead and unfilter our line chart first, select our matrix, and right off the bat I can see that we're filtering, looks like every other visual on the page. And if I select a certain product, I can see that yes, that's the case. My KPIs are filtering, my line chart's filtering, the monthly KPI cards filter, and also these two cards at the bottom. So a couple things that don't make a ton of sense here. For one, I think the most ordered product type and most returned product type shouldn't be impacted by a specific product selection. This doesn't really make any sense. It's just going to show whatever subcategory or type the selected product falls into. So let's go ahead and turn off the interactions there. The revenue trending and KPIs I think makes sense. It's kind of helpful to see this data at a product level, but the bar chart doesn't feel quite right. I'd like to see, in this case, maybe the proportion of volume that a certain product had on order volume as a whole. So normally to do that, I would click the highlight mode here, but note that that doesn't actually seem to do anything. And if that's the case, sometimes what's going on is that you'll get this kind of warning sign that says cross-highlighting isn't supported for complex top-end filters, and that's because we have a top-end filter applied to our matrix here. So we have a couple options. We can either decide that we're okay with filter mode or clear cross-filtering entirely, or we could go to our matrix, head into the filter pane, and clear that top end. Let's do this just to see our interaction with the bar chart. And there you go. Now we see that highlight effect as opposed to the filter effect, which in this case, I actually like that interaction quite a bit. So that's a good example of a real-world trade-off that you might have to make based on the context. In this case, let's go ahead and undo that change. One more time. That's going to put my top end filter back in place. And for now, I'll just turn off cross-filtering entirely between the matrix and the bar. So I'm satisfied with that. We could go through this exercise with other visuals on the page as well, but those were the ones that really jumped out at me in terms of needing customization. So if we're all set, we can head back to Format, turn off the Edit Interaction mode, and we're back to where we started. So there you have it, quick crash course in editing your report interactions.